They say that whenever the Ramayana is recited in its purest form, Hanumanji also visits and sits for the storytelling. So I sincerely hope that he's with us. Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Shri Ram.
What is said about Sita's mood at this point?
Maharishi Valmiki has told us about conversation between Shri Ram and Sita. For me, being here in Chitrakoot with you is more pleasurable than being in Ayodhya.
What rules were there?
They had to wear cheer vastras and they were allowed to eat only fruits and roots. In Ayodhya, what had happened had taken a terrible toll on Dasharatha. He told Kausalya, "It is all the result of my karma. I had killed an ascetic," his parents said. "Just as I am suffering now, you shall die of the sorrow of losing your son."
The Ramayan mentions that in that phase of human history, non-veg was consumed and alcohol was consumed.
Yes, they drink alcohol made from honey.
And they speak about deer meat and peacock meat.
Yes.
Wow.
Many times we incorrectly think that Ravan kidnapped Sita as revenge for what had happened to Shurpanakha. But he has not even heard about Shurpanakha. Ravan made that decision because the entire Rakshas force at Janasthan, which was their power center in this region, had been decimated by one person, Ram. They come to Panchavati, Marich transforms himself into a deer. Ram started chasing the deer and shot off an arrow. Marich screamed, "Sita! Lakshman!" Sita heard the scream. She told Lakshman, "Ram is in trouble, please go and help him." Lakshman said that was not his voice. He will come back. She became hysterical and she told Lakshman, "Why aren't you going out to help him? You want him to die so that you can have me." He said, "I cannot take this." And he did not draw any Lakshman Rekha. Shri Ram tells Lakshman, "There is nothing more painful for me than an unwanted touch on Sita. How can we find Sita? And without Sita, how can I ever live?" And with those words, Aranya Kandam Sampurna.
Hey guys, this is a very special sequel episode to the beginning of the Ramayan episode that we created with Yashodeep Deodhar sir about a month ago. We intend on creating a podcast series with him which spreads across 4 episodes and which helps spread the true version of the Ramayan on the global internet. The only Ramayan that we refer to is the original Valmiki Ramayana. This episode is centered around the beginnings of the Vanwas and the theme of the anti-hero in this story, Ravan. We've deep dived into his character. We've deep dived into details of the story that you wouldn't have heard before. But for me, the real benefit of this episode are the tangential sections where we try understanding Bharat, India, from a 12,000 BC lens. Why do I say 12,000 BC? Because that's roughly the time that Nilesh Oak believes that the Ramayana took place. This episode has also been created keeping global audiences in mind. So if you're not familiar with the Ramayana, I still think you'll be able to gain lots of value from this episode. I highly recommend that you check out episode 1 before heading into this episode. But even if you've not checked it out, the magic of Yashodeep Deodhar is such that his storytelling skills are deeply intoxicating. Enjoy this extremely calm, extremely special part 2 of our Ramayan series with Yashodeep Deodhar sir. Starting part 2 of the Ramayan with the purest intentions, we have Yashodeep Deodhar sir. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
Feeling good?
Yes.
I look at conveying the original Valmiki Ramayana as a duty in so many ways, especially considering the fact that we're trying to target a global audience here. So I think that you're probably the only person in our country and therefore the world who can do this in the English language. There's a lot of Hindi retellers of the story, but very few people who can speak in English the way you can. So I think this is global responsibility that we're speaking about here.
Thank you.
Feeling good?
I'll try my best.
Okay. Let's begin by kind of reviewing episode 1 just a little bit. There was a lot of people in the comment section who were upset that I was interrupting you at many moments. But in my eyes, I was interrupting you from a perspective of educating a lot of people on the basics of the Ramayana, which we often take for granted in India when we grow up here. You don't have a lot of tangential questions, but it's important to touch upon the basics as well for people who are hearing the story for the first time.
Sure.
So pardon the interruptions
Not
from
at
that
all.
episode.
I thought we had a great conversation, and I understand, the questions that are on your mind, you're voicing them, and it's my duty to address them. So, but at the same time, the viewers have told us what they would like us to do differently. So, let's do the best that we can.
Okay, let's just start flowing.
Yes.
Today we don't need to set as much context as well. But we will set a lot of context only on the Ravan section of this podcast.
Okay.
Every great story needs a great villain. That's how I look at storytelling in the first place. Would you classify Ravan as a villain?
No.
No. Okay.
See, we spoke about this a little bit, and not because he was a great character. I think my answer is a no for a different reason. We will understand Ravan. But also, like I said before, let us not frame the Ramayana as a Ram versus Ravan story. This is about a person facing and overcoming the challenges of life. We covered a quarter of the Ramayana in the last discussion, and there was no Ravan. But Shri Ram did face some challenges, and the way he reacted to them is certainly something that we can learn from. So it is about, we started this, and maybe this is also, you asked me for a quick recap. One of the things I wanted to reiterate was that Valmiki had said right in the beginning why he had written this. He had written it to give an example of somebody who exemplifies universal human values. What it means to be a good human being. That is the purpose. So Ram versus Ravan is not the purpose. Yes, there were some good things about Ravan. Yes, there were many bad things about Ravan, and we will get to know him right now. But it's the frame of the story is not Ram versus Ravan.
Okay. Before I let you begin part 2 of our series, I would love for you to recap a little bit on the reference point of this whole series. We're only referencing the Valmiki Ramayana.
Yes. So we are describing what Maharshi Valmiki wrote at the same time that Shri Ram lived. So he wrote it as a biography of Shri Ram, Ramasya Charitam. And the Valmiki Ramayana that we are referring to is the one published by Gita Press, Gorakhpur. And we consider this as itihas. We spoke about it last time. Iti, ha, asa means that is how it happened. So if the question is what happened, the reference text is the Valmiki Ramayana. There are so many versions of the Ramayana. And many times, some of the viewers, when they hear a description during this series, they may feel that's not how I had heard the story. That's because the popular versions are different from the Valmiki Ramayana. And that is also the reason why we are doing this, because we want to convey what actually happened.
They say that whenever the Ramayana is recited in its purest form, in its original form, Hanumanji also visits the premises and sits for the storytelling. So I sincerely hope that he's with us as we continue the story. Okay.
Yes.
Jai Hanuman, Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Shri Ram.
Let's begin part 2.
Yes. And, where we had left off, Shri Ram, Lakshman and Sita's chariot had just left the city of Ayodhya. And a quick recap on why they had gone. So, Shri Ram was the rightful successor to the empire. But just before he was to be coronated, his stepmother, Kaikeyi, demanded of the king Dasharatha that her son Bharat be made Yuvraj and Ram be sent off into exile. And Dasharatha had given her 2 promises a long time back, so he was bound by the promises. And for Shri Ram, the most important thing was welfare of the people, Praja Palana. And he knew that the welfare could only be assured if society was based on dharma and satya, righteousness and truth. And therefore the king's word must be held true. And so he accepted to go into exile, even though it was extremely unfair to him. His wife, Sita, argued that whatever was asked of him automatically applied to her, and so she went into Vanwas, exile. And Lakshman, the younger brother, argued that he would support Ram in empire or exile. Come what may, he would support him. And so he gave up 14 years of a comfortable life as a prince in Ayodhya and went with Shri Ram and Lakshman into exile. So that's where we left off. The chariot had just gone out of the city of Ayodhya. And we are now continuing the second book of the Ramayana, the Ayodhya Kand.
Okay, what is said about Lakshman and Sita's mood at this point? Because I remember the last episode you mentioned how Shri Ram's mood was very stoic and kind of, he just had a sense of duty with this whole situation.
Lakshman still did not agree that Shri Ram should have accepted it. And about Sita, actually, Maharshi Valmiki describes her state of mind and her emotions in this journey from Ayodhya up to Shringaverpur. They covered it in about a day. It's 160 kilometers, 100 miles straight south. And in this journey, Sita at first was stunned. She was lost. She was in shock. Vishtita vismrita sthita. And that's understandable. She had been brought up in the palace in Mithila first, then in Ayodhya. She was wholly unprepared for this. But the strong woman that she was, she came back. She cried bitterly, but then she overcame those emotions too. Maharshi Valmiki says that afterwards, after some time, nothing bothered her. The strong wind, the blazing sun. In fact, she was curiously asking about all the villages, towns, and rivers that they passed by. He says that she was like a bubbly young girl. Bala iva ramate Sita. And then later on, with confidence, she said, Ram, Lakshman and I will be back here after completing 14 years of exile in the forest. My mighty and righteous husband will gloriously return to Ayodhya. See, that was the confidence. And this is also a great learning in the Ramayana. We will find again and again that Shri Ram, Lakshman, Sita, Hanuman and others in the Ramayana, they are sometimes overwhelmed with emotions, sorrow, hopelessness, even anger. But they always come back from it. They are able to channel their emotions into purposeful action. And this is a great learning, because last time we saw that when Shri Ram was told that he has to go into Vanwas, he said, Eva mastu, so be it. And he accepted it without any anger, without any irritation. But mostly we find that we are not able to do that, right? We face a difficulty in our lives. Yes, we feel sorrow. Yes, sometimes we feel hopelessness. But Maharshi Valmiki is telling us through these characters, that's okay. It is human to feel emotions as long as you can come back from it, as long as you can channel it into purposeful action. So that was Sita's state of mind in the first few hours.
Okay. Do you want to talk a little bit about the geography that they're in?
Sure. So we are south of Ayodhya, which is in northern India right now. We are heading south up to the banks of river Ganga in this journey.
Okay.
And that is what they covered and came and rested for the first night near the town of Shringaverpur. In this description, you asked about the geography. This was through the rural parts of the kingdom of Kosal, the Janpad of Kosal. Interestingly, Maharshi Valmiki has described the rural parts also as, life there was full of beauty, prosperity, and culture. Many times we feel that cities are based on exploitation of poor farmers in the countryside. But clearly the Ikshwakus had created a kingdom, an economy which flourished both in the urban center as well as in the rural parts.
Okay.
And then they came near the town of Shringaverpur. They settled down for the night. Shringaverpur was ruled by King Guha. Guha was a leader of the Nishads. The Nishads were a community of fishermen, and they were also expert boat builders, and they used to help travelers cross over the river in their boats. Guha was a dear friend of Ram. Ramasya Atma Samas Sakha. he came out to see Ram. And he was distressed to see his friend, the great prince, in that condition, wearing chirvastras. He hugged Ram and said, "What can I do for you?" And Ram said, "You can give some feed for the horses, but nothing for himself." And then the next morning, Guha helped Ram, Lakshman and Sita cross over the Ganga to the southern bank. From there, they walked east and came to the confluence of Ganga and Yamuna, Prayagraj. And at Prayag, they came to the ashram of Bharadwaj Muni. Bharadwaj Muni welcomed them and said, "I have heard what happened. You have been banished for no fault of yours. You can stay here as long as you wish." But Ram said, "This is too close to Ayodhya. People may visit frequently, come and see me frequently, and that would not be appropriate. Please suggest a place that is more secluded but also comfortable for Sita." Bharadwaj Muni suggested that they go further south across the Yamuna and then to a place called Chitrakoot. Now, in these few conversations, what I want to highlight, look at Ram's reaction. You are asking about his state of mind. He has been thrown out of exile for no fault of his. But what's on top of his mind? He's still concerned about others. The first evening, he thinks about feed for the horses. The horses would be tired after riding for the whole day. Then he's concerned that the place is comfortable for them, but he doesn't want to interfere in Bharat's work. It's too close to Ayodhya. He's thinking of Bharat. So they need to go to a secluded place. But still comfortable for Sita. He's thinking of Sita. See, Ram's action that we saw in the last discussion, when he accepted exile, was a grand action. All of these are day-to-day actions. And what is inspiring about Shri Ram's character is these both, the grand actions as well as the day-to-day actions. And this is something that we can implement, or incorporate into our daily lives, right? Being nice to others, thoughtful, caring. So this was Shri Ram's state of mind. And then, by the way, Bharadwaj Muni had said, go south across the Yamuna. How to cross it? Right? It was a fast-flowing river, and earlier Guha had helped them cross in his boat, the Ganga. Here Valmiki describes that they made a raft. See, this is now life in the wild. They have their tools, their weapons, and nothing else. So they made a raft using logs of wood and bamboos and covered it with grass, and then used that to go across the Yamuna.
What about Bharat at this point? What's happening on that front?
Okay, so
some recap context.
Very timely. In fact, Bharat is still at his uncle's place in Kaikeyi's brother's place or her father's place.
Which would be where?
Northwest of Ayodhya.
Okay.
A few days riding distance away. So it was not close, that kingdom. Bharat is away. He has no idea about any of this. But soon he will be called. Right?
Okay.
In fact, in Valmiki's narration, now that they reach Chitrakoot, they make a small cottage for themselves and they start living there. And then he turns his attention to Ayodhya. In Ayodhya, the shock and loss and pain of what had happened had taken a terrible toll on Dasharatha. His health was failing. One evening, late at night, he told Kausalya, "Why am I surprised at this turn of events? It is all the result of my karma. Let me tell you a story that happened a long time back, before our marriage." And then Dasharatha starts narrating this story. He says, "I was a young prince then. I was out hunting near the banks of Sarayu. In the thick forest, late at night. It was raining. I was waiting for some animal to come to the riverside, my bow armed. And then I heard a sound, a gurgling sound. I thought an elephant was drinking water. And I shot my arrow to the source of that sound. And then I heard a man scream and fall into the water. I rushed to the riverside. I had made a terrible mistake. There was no elephant. It was the sound of a pot being filled. My arrow was stuck in the man's chest. He was lying in a pool of mud and blood. He looked up at me with bloodshot eyes and said, "Why did you do that? I did not harm you. I am an ascetic. I had come here to take some water for my father and mother. They are old and frail and blind. With just one arrow, you have killed all three of us." In his dying moments, the ascetic told me the way to his ashram and asked me to go and tell his parents what had happened. I went and told his parents somehow. The news crushed them. I brought them back to the riverside and they grieved for a long time next to their dead son's body. And then, when I lit a funeral pyre, the old man and woman walked into the fire and killed themselves. The blind couple felt that with their son gone, they had nothing to live for. But just before he killed himself, the old man said, "If you had killed my son, an ascetic, knowingly, you and your entire clan would have perished. I know it was a mistake, but even then, you must pay for it. Just as I am suffering now, O king, you too shall die of the sorrow of losing your son. Evam tvam putra shokena rajan kalam karishyasi." That was what the man had said. And how true the words had turned out. Dasharatha, his health was failing. Also, he lost his eyesight. He was just like the blind old man pining for his lost son. And later that night, Dasharatha passed away in his sleep.
This is very soon after Shri Ram left.
Just a few days. The pain and loss was too much for him. In later retellings, in this story, the ascetic's name is given as Shravan Kumar. You may have heard of that. But in the Valmiki Ramayana, that name is not mentioned. But there is something else about him and his family that is mentioned, which is very interesting. So Valmiki says that the young ascetic and his parents, they lived in a small ashram. Their time was spent in the study of scriptures and discussions on them. The son was a regular with the Sandhya Upasana and other daily rites. Maharishi Valmiki has repeatedly used the words Rishi, Muni and Tapasvi for all three of them. But what comes as a surprise to us modern readers is Maharishi Valmiki says in the passing that the Rishi's father was a Vaishya by birth and the mother was a Shudra. So what this shows that at the time of Ramayana, the spiritual path was open to all sections of society. It was not restricted to any Varna. In fact, the Varnas were professions. So the Ramayana has multiple examples where the Varna of person is different from the Varna of his father. In fact, we had met the great sage Vishwamitra in the last episode. His father was a Kshatriya, a king. In fact, Vishwamitra himself used to be a king. He became a Rishi afterwards. And we will come across Ravan in some time. Ravan was the son of a Brahman, but he himself was a ruler, a Kshatriya.
It's so crazy that you're mentioning the story in our second quarter, because usually in a lot of retellings of the Ramayana, the story is mentioned at the start, kind of as the beginning of the Ramayana. And before this episode began today, you told me that Maharishi Valmiki has written this Ramayana in a very cinematic way, right?
Yes.
This is pretty cinematic. That you
Yes.
stop at this point and go back into the timeline.
Yes. Yes.
What aspect does it actually start with again?
So the Valmiki Ramayana starts with the question. When he says, Kon vasmin sampratam loke gunavan kascha viryavan, he asks who in the world lives today who has the following qualities, and he talks about being righteous, truthful, caring, a doer, vidwan, right? That's how the Valmiki Ramayana starts.
In terms of the story, is it...
With Ayodhya.
Okay.
So the great city of Ayodhya.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the current storyline.
Yes. Yes.
Before I let you begin again, I would love to ask you what you think Shri Ram's age was at the time of Vanwas starting, or is there no mention?
No. So there are multiple references and some of them are conflicting. So according to some references, he was 17 years old. According to others, he was 25. And some people have also argued that he could have some other age as well. I'll tell you why. Do you want to go into the details of the different
Little
arguments?
bit, yeah, sure.
So Kausalya says that I have waited for 17 years when she was lamenting that Shri Ram has to go into Vanwas. She said, I had waited for you to become Yuvraj for 17 years since you were born. Right? So that is 17 years. Afterwards, when Sita meets Ravan, through that conversation, there are references which say that he was 25 years old.
At the time that Sita met Ravan?
At the time of Vanwas.
At the time of Vanwas?
Yes,
okay.
yes. So she's back telling what happened earlier.
Okay.
Some people also argue that the age given is also could be from the age of birth or from the age of Upanayanam, right?
What is Upanayanam?
The thread ceremony.
Okay.
So all in all, we can take Shri Ram's age as approximately 17 years at the time the Vanwas started.
Okay.
Yes. So where we were, Dasharatha had just passed away and his body was put in a bath of oil to preserve it for a few days because none of the princes were there. Ram and Lakshman were in exile and Bharat and Shatrughan were away. And so messengers were sent to call Bharat and Shatrughan. And when Bharat came back, he went to meet Kaikeyi. And she told him proudly what she had done. She said, I have cleared all the obstacles from your path. And now is not the time to be angry. Take over the empire and lord over the world. But Bharat's reaction was very different to what she had anticipated. He was wild with rage at what she had done. He said, how could you? I don't want to take over the empire like this. Ram is the rightful successor. He is the eldest and also the most capable. Jeshtha Shreshthascha. And he refused to take over the empire. Bharat said, I will call Ram back and will ever remain his servant. Guru Vasishtha was clear that Bharat should take over the empire. But before that, the king's body was pulled out of the bath of oil. The last rites were done. And then he told Bharat, everything is ready for your coronation. But Bharat said that he would go into the forest and coronate Ram there itself. And in fact, he said, why just me? Let us all go into the forest and get Ram back. And then Bharat announced that a grand new road will be constructed from Ayodhya up to Sringaverpur, on which thousands of people will go from Ayodhya to bring Ram back. Valmiki then makes an interesting detour and he talks about this highway construction project.
Really?
How architects, builders, carpenters, stone cutters, everybody was called to make the road flat and to create rest facilities along the way, sources of water, wells, trees were planted and so on. Now, it's interesting why, the king is not there and there's so much uncertainty in the empire. Why construct a road at this time? But Bharat has also done something that charged up the people. See, when you are in shock, what pulls you out of it? Purposeful action, when you can throw yourself into some action. And the citizens of Ayodhya, the ministers, everyone was in shock and sorrow at what had happened. And when he gave them a clear direction that we will go and call Ram back, they poured themselves into this road building project. And also, Bharat wanted to make sure that when he went to call Ram back, whatever discussion he had was done publicly. Because there was a cloud of suspicion. Had he planned all this with Kaikeyi? Even Kausalya, when he first met Kausalya, she said, "This empire that you wanted is all yours now." She also assumed that he had planned this. So there was this cloud of suspicion on his head, and he wanted to make sure that everyone goes together to call Ram back.
What is said about him? Because we barely hear about Bharat or Shatrughan in all the retellings. Is he described?
Well, Bharat's, not physically, if you ask me, in terms of picturization, but his character does come through in the Ayodhya Kand. As soon as Kaikeyi tells him that the empire is yours, who could have refused the greatest empire in the world when you have not done anything wrong? It was not Bharat who did anything wrong, but still to say outright that I will not accept the empire and I will go and call Ram back. So, all the characteristics that we talk about of, universal human values and how Shri Ram exemplifies them, well, Bharat does too, so many of them.
Okay. In the last episode, how we spoke about the concept of avatars and how we consider Shri Ram to be an avatar of Vishnu Bhagwan. What I've often heard on the show is that perhaps Lakshman was the Sheshnag that Vishnu Bhagwan lies upon. Is there anything related to this that's written about in the Valmiki Ramayana? Because the tangential question here is also about Bharat and Shatrughan. Were they all a part of the same soul?
Maharshi Valmiki says in the Balakand that Vishnu decided to take birth as the 4 sons of Dasharatha. So all 4 sons.
They were all part of the same soul, effectively.
Vishnu decided to take birth, yes.
But they were unaware that they were all parts of Vishnu.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay, moving on.
So Bharat, a grand army, citizens of Ayodhya, Guru Vasishtha, Kausalya, Sumitra and Kaikeyi all went on this path to call Ram back. When they came to Shringaverpur, King Guha saw them coming and he asked his men to line up for battle. 500 boats were lined up in water, 100 men in each. 50,000 armed men. Guha said, "If Bharat is going against Ram, I will not allow him to cross the river." This was his commitment towards his friend. See, Shri Ram has not even asked him to do anything, but Guha is ready to lay down his life to protect his friend. But Bharat came up and explained to him that he was going to call Ram back. And then Guha helped him cross the river in his boats. And following Shri Ram's footsteps, Bharat also went to Bharadwaj Muni's ashram. Like I mentioned before, there was this cloud of suspicion on Bharat's regarding Bharat, right? So Bharadwaj Muni also asked him, "Why are you here? Do you wish harm towards Ram? Tell me." He asked him very forcefully. And Bharat was left stumbling for words. He said, "Oh sage, please don't speak to me like that. Please don't rebuke me like that. I want to call Ram back." Guru Vasishtha also confirmed that Bharat was telling the truth. So Bharadwaj Muni said, "I will tell you the way. They are staying in Chitrakoot and I will tell you how to get there. But before that, please spend the night here." And that evening, Bharadwaj Muni organized a grand reception for Bharat and his soldiers. The description of this reception is very interesting. So let's see a short video on how Maharshi Valmiki has described this.
Sure.
"I invite you to spend the night here." That evening, Bharadwaj Muni hosted a grand reception for Bharat. And what a party it was! The 91st Sarga of the Ayodhya Kand makes for fascinating reading. There were bathing facilities at the river for those who wanted to refresh themselves. At hand were heaps of fragrant powders, sandalwood paste, mirrors, clothes, footwear, and combs. For entertainment, there were dancers, musicians, and singers. The music was so soft, melodious, and rhythmic that it not only entered everyone's ears, but it seemed to pervade even the earth and the heaven above. In the gentle breeze, bilva trees swayed as though they were playing the mridanga. Peepal trees appeared to be dancing. Flowers rained down. There was a grand VIP enclosure where Bharat and other special guests were hosted. The guests were enthralled by exquisite dance performances and partook delicious payasam. Bharat gracefully accepted the hospitality, but never forgot why he was there in the first place. All his thoughts were only with Ram. As a mark of this, he did not sit at the special singhasan that was meant for him, but bowed in reverence as if Ram was seated there. He then took a place among the ministers. Outside, the ladies serving food and drinks called out to everyone, Suram surapah pibata, payasancha bubhukshitah, masani cha sumedhyani, bhaksyantam yo yadicchati. Here's wine for those who drink. Those who are hungry can have the payasam and the meats. Have whatever you wish. The meats included marga mayura kaukutaihi, deer, peacocks, and chicken. The soldiers got very, very drunk, especially the junior ranks, foot soldiers, horsemen, and elephant riders. Wearing flower garlands, they ran about dancing, singing, and laughing. They exclaimed, Naiva Ayodhyam Gamishyamo Nagamishyama Dandakan. We don't want to go back to Ayodhya, nor do we want to go searching for Ram in the Dandakaranya. This place is just heaven.
How could Bharadwaj Muni allow such things to happen? I am surprised to hear that Valmiki has said all these things.
Bharadwaj Muni, like all rishis, led a life of austerity steeped in the pursuit of knowledge. But he also recognized that different sections of society led different lifestyles, and he did not try to force a single ideal on all his guests. As for Valmiki, he is an honest chronicler of everything that happened, the way it happened. And so he also describes how all this ended. After the party was over, Sraguttamah Prithag Vikirnah Pramarditah. The wonderful garlands of flower had been crushed and were strewn all over. And Madirot Kata Narah. The men were terribly drunk, sloshed. Some things never change. Iti ha asa. That is how it happened.
So the Ramayan mentions that in that phase of human history, non-veg was consumed and alcohol was consumed.
Yes, the 91st Sarga of the Ayodhya Kand.
That is incredible.
Well, different communities had different habits.
What alcohol do you think they were having?
See, afterwards there is a description of another, amongst the Vanavas as well, where they drink alcohol made from honey.
Really?
And this is probably some sort of fermented wine, fruits fermented.
Why did the story need a description like this in this much detail?
Okay, now interesting. See, Maharishi Valmiki has taken quite a few detours in his narration. For example, there are detours. I didn't cover them. When Bharat was being called, right? Dasharatha had just died and the ministers all got together and they said, there is no king in place. There's a lot of political uncertainty. We must quickly appoint the king. And Valmiki takes a detour and talks about what are the risks of political uncertainty. Arajake janapade. Many shlokas have this. It goes, there's a lesson about governance in the middle of all this drama. So he does take these detours. Now, what is the purpose for this description? Is it just, to give a lighter break to the story? I don't know. In fact, some people have also argued whether this was inserted later on. But even if you go back to the tikas that commented on the Valmiki Ramayana hundreds of years back, this sarga is there as well. Some have argued that perhaps this is a fantasy part of it. But anyway, I wanted to lay it out for you. It's there right now. When you read it, this is what you find.
What other tangential sargas have we missed out on over the course of these 2 episodes?
Quite a few. See, this is 24,000 verses 500 sargas, and we have to condense everything. For example, when the messengers were sent to call Bharat, Maharishi Valmiki takes a detour and gives us a geography lesson. He talks about all the towns, villages, rivers that they passed through. And historical researchers will use that and try and align with current names of rivers and places.
Have you visited Uttar Pradesh?
Yes.
Do you feel...
Ayodhya.
Do you look at Uttar Pradesh differently after having studied Valmiki's Ramayana?
No, there is clearly an emotional connect to Ayodhya. Definitely.
How did you feel there after studying?
The grand descriptions which we spoke about in the previous discussion as well of Ayodhya are so inspiring. And I hope we can replicate those. Again, this is not, I'm not saying we should go back to some hoary past, but be inspired from it and make our present and future.
Gotcha. Okay, back to the storyline.
So, Bharat came after the reception. Bharat went towards Chitrakoot. Now Maharishi Valmiki shifts the scene to Chitrakoot. Remember, Ram, Lakshman and Sita had made their cottage there. They had settled down into their life in exile.
This is geographically where, according to you?
This is in Madhya Pradesh, just at the border of Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh. So south, we are still in northern India, south of Ayodhya. The region of Chitrakoot is on the border of Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh. At Chitrakoot, Maharishi Valmiki describes their life there. Of course, it was not an easy life, but they had settled down well. And I'll describe one conversation between Shri Ram and Sita that Maharishi Valmiki has told us about. So one day they are sitting outside their cottage. The mountains are on one side and the Mandakini river flowing down below. And Shri Ram says, just look at those peaks, shining brilliantly and as though piercing the sky. The flocks of birds all around. He's describing the beauty of Chitrakoot. The flocks of birds all around, the flowering and fruit-laden trees, and the crystal clear waters of the Mandakini. There are lotuses floating on top of the water. Sandbanks have geese and swans. And he tells Sita, Viga hasva mayasaha. Jump in with me. He's inviting Sita to jump into the waters of the Mandakini for a swim. And he tells her, for me, being here in Chitrakoot with you is more pleasurable than being in Ayodhya. And he asks her, Vaidehi, Ramase Katchit Chitrakoote Mayasaha. My dear Sita, are you happy here with me in Chitrakoot? See how sensitive he is towards Sita. She has given up 14 years in Ayodhya to be with him. And he is, of course, very concerned that she's doing okay in this time in exile. Shri Ram's frame of mind, he's clearly not wallowing in the past. Why me? Could it have been different? He's accepted exile. And not just accepted, he doesn't see it as a punishment. He sees it as an experience that will teach him something different. He talks about the rishis living in the area and how kings in the past earlier had also retired to these forests in their later years. And he says, I'm here now, and this is also an opportunity.
Is there anything described about the dangers of the forest?
Yes. So right now they're living peacefully, right? There are parts of the forest which have very dangerous animal life or attacks by Rakshasas as well. That has not happened yet, but it is soon to come. So far, they have been comfortable in Chitrakoot. And by the way, they were allowed to eat only fruits and roots. This was a requirement of the Vanwas. So even when Bharadwaj Muni told them to go and live on the Chitrakoot mountain, he said, you will find plenty of fruits and roots there. And also water sources nearby.
What other rules were there?
So they had to wear cheer vastras, live as an ascetic, and eat fruits and roots.
Cheer vastras?
Cheer vastra is the rough, unstitched cloth. Remember, the Kaikeyi had given them the rough, unstitched cloths in the court. So wearing cheer vastras, the cheer vastra is the rough, unstitched cloth. This is how you picturize usually Shri Ram Lakshman in Vanwas, right? Not wearing their royal clothes.
How much time has passed at this point between Bharat being at Bharadwaj Muni's ashram and Shri Ram leaving Ayodhya?
We are still days and weeks since the time Shri Ram left Ayodhya, because Dasharatha passed away in a matter of days, perhaps 5 or 6 days. And then Bharat was called quickly. Maybe, the messengers took a week to go and then a week to come back. And then he set off on this road building project and came down to meet him. So we are days, weeks, at most a few months.
Okay. Now let's continue.
So this was their life in Chitrakoot, and one day Bharat came up to see them. Ram was surprised to see him. And he said, how come you're here? Is everything okay in Ayodhya? Is Maharaj Dasharatha okay? We were talking of detours. Here Maharshi Valmiki makes a fascinating detour. So when Ram asks Bharat, how is Maharaj Dasharatha? He actually asks a series of questions about Ayodhya. And this is the 100th chapter of the Ayodhya Kand, a very special one. Each shlok has the keyword Katchit. Katchit means, is it true that, or I trust? And through these questions, Maharshi Valmiki is giving us a lesson on governance. This is perhaps the oldest text on governance in the world. I'll give you some examples of the actual verses.
Sure. What is the context here? Why is this detour happening? Is this a dialogue?
So, yes, Ram is asking Bharat questions. Is everything okay in Ayodhya?
Okay.
Right? He has just come. So he said, how come you're here? Is everything okay? And then he says, is it true that, for example, he's asking, Ayaste vipulaha kachchit alpataro vyayaha. He says, I trust that the revenues of the state are abundant and the expenditure much less. In other words, are you running a budget surplus? I hope this is not a deficit. Even today, many of the top economies run budget deficits. So there are a series of questions about the finances of the state. He says, Katchit, I trust that expenditure is not wasteful. Katchit, I trust that you are not doing overtaxation. And that the revenues are based on a strong economy. And he asks about all different parts of the economy, farming, cattle rearing, trade.
Wow.
About farming, he says, I trust that farming is, the farmlands are irrigated and not dependent only on rainfall. Right? So, depth of questions. He asks him about the justice system. I hope the judges are not biased and that cases are judged based on merit and not whether a party is rich or poor. Interestingly, he says, I trust that not a single innocent person is ever punished. But if there are criminals who are caught red-handed and against whom there is sufficient evidence, then I trust they don't go scot-free. So it's a fairly long chapter, in terms of a detour. He asks about Bharat's top team, right? For any leader, the top team is very important. So he asks about his ministers, the military generals, ambassadors. For example, he says, I trust that the ambassadors are well informed, fast learners, and are able to convey a message without distortion. Yathoktavadi. So very specific questions. Even about his personal habits. He asks Bharat, I trust that if there is a project that has minimal inputs but can give substantial returns, then I hope you start implementation right away. This is a sign of a decisive leader. Don't get stuck in expert committees and project proposals. If the project is good, then start implementation. So after being questioned, Bharat told him about what had happened with Dasharatha, and Ram was devastated. Ram, Lakshman and Sita grieved together, and then they performed the rites of Jalanjali and Pindadan for Dasharatha. And then, by that time, the others had also reached. See, Bharat had come up earlier to the cottage, and now Kausalya, Sumitra, Kaikeyi, Guru Vasishtha, some prominent citizens, everyone came up to the cottage. And then they sat down for the purpose for which they had come, which was to try and convince Ram to come back. And what happened next is perhaps a unique event in history. It was a debate. It was a debate between two princes, Ram and Bharat, where both are arguing that the other is the rightful successor. See, in history, we have many instances of princes arguing, sometimes even with their weapons, that who should be the king. Both, each one wants to be the king, and they argue or decide it with or without weapons. But here, both are arguing that the other is the rightful successor. This was the debate. So they sat down, and Bharat made his... right away he said, first of all, that I had nothing to do with Kaikeyi's demands. I condemn them. And Shri Ram said, I never doubted that. Then Bharat makes his argument. He says, this kingdom was given to me because of my mother's demands. I am now giving it to you without any encumbrance. It is yours. You were asking me about Bharat. This brings out his character, right? He says, I give it to you. And he says, I am as capable of walking in your shoes as a donkey is capable of walking like a horse. Gating khara ivashwasya. In other words, he was saying, no one can take care of this empire like you. Please come back. The people that had gathered there said, Sadhu, Sadhu. Yes, yes, bravo. They were all in support of Bharat. Shri Ram made the simple argument. He said, our father, the great King Dasharatha, has asked us both to do certain things. I'll be in the forest and do what I have been told to do. You go back to Ayodhya and what you have been told to do. Shri Ram is saying this as though there's no difference between the two. But Bharat said, what he has asked is not as per dharma. It is not right and therefore should not be followed. But Shri Ram made the same argument that he had made last time. He said, he told Bharat that it is not that Dasharatha wanted him to go into exile. See, he had told him, arrest me and take over the empire. But he was bound by his promises. And so, once again, Shri Ram explained to him that I am upholding the king's word, the king's promise, by being here in exile. And you too should go back and get yourself coronated so that the king's word is held true. Maharshi Vasishtha tried to convince Ram. Others also tried. But he was unmoved. Bharat then said, I will go on a hunger strike. I will not eat until you agree to come back. Shri Ram said, that mode of protest is not allowed for somebody in your position. It is only for those who have no other means of being heard. Bharat then turned to the people and said, ask them to somehow convince Ram. But they said that Ram is right. They cannot ask him to come back. The Maharshis of Chitrakoot had also gathered there. And the verdict was in Ram's favor. At the end of the debate, Maharshi Valmiki says, Ramah hladitah trastagatrastu bharatah. Ram was happy and Bharat was trembling. Just think about it. In this debate, the winner gets 14 years in exile and the loser gets the empire and is left trembling. These were the Ikshwakus. They have been in power for 34 generations. Even now, there is no sense of entitlement, not a trace of any lust for power.
That's why they were in power for 34 generations.
Yes. That is how it happened, the great debate. So Shri Ram clearly said he would not accept the empire, but Bharat still insisted that he too would not accept the empire. Now what to do? The answer, incredibly, was found in a piece of wood. Bharat offered Ram a pair of gold-decked padukas, footwear, wooden sandals. Shri Ram wore those sandals and gave them back to Bharat. Bharat said he would rule in Shri Ram's name as a trustee, a caretaker. So the padukas were brought back, coronation was done, and they were placed under the parasol. And Bharat himself, he ruled as a trustee from outside Ayodhya. He stayed in Nandigram. And he also wore cheer vastras. He said, I will not accept any comforts of royal life while my brother is in that condition.
For 14 years?
For 14 years.
Wow.
Yes. And last time you had asked me, what happens after 14 years? If Shri Ram comes back, does he get the empire or what? Bharat was very clear. He told Shri Ram, if I don't see you on the very day 14 years are over, I will step into a fire and kill myself. This was clearly temporary for Bharat. He was just a trustee, a caretaker, till Shri Ram came back. And Ram's last words to Bharat were, don't be angry with Kaikeyi. Take care of her.
What is said about Kaikeyi at this point?
Interestingly, she came to Chitrakoot. So she was there. But Maharshi Valmiki does not describe anything else about her. She's just a spectator. Where things have clearly not turned out as she had planned. But now she's left with nothing, not even a role. Because Bharat clearly refuses to take over the empire.
Is she mentioned later on in the story?
Few times only, when Shri Ram, Lakshman and Sita are talking about what must be going on back in Ayodhya. Interestingly, in this first day, when Sumantra was dropping them in the chariot, they were talking about things. So when Sumantra went back, the charioteer, when he went back to Ayodhya, everyone asked him, so how are they? What did they say? And he told them what had happened, etc. Someone also asked him, did Sita say anything about Kaikeyi? And Sumantra said, I don't remember exactly. And then he changed the topic. Yeah.
So she just becomes a lost figure?
Yes.
That's it?
Yes. She's left with nothing.
What about the lady who had convinced her to do it?
Manthara.
Manthara. Is anything said about her?
A little bit. So, when Bharat and Shatrughan first came back, they describe that Manthara thought, she was strutting around the palace victoriously, and Shatrughan told Bharat, Shatrughan and Bharat are like Lakshman and Ram. So Shatrughan is a bit, he was angry and he said, I want to kill Manthara. And Bharat told him, don't even think about it. Don't even think of harming her. Because if you do something like that, Ram will not even speak to us.
What is said about Shatrughan? Again, very shadowy character.
Yes, very briefly, but it is only in this context that when they come back, He is the one who is more, he cannot accept. In fact, he says, how did Lakshman allow this to happen? Why did he not stop King Dasharatha?
Who was older between Lakshman and Bharat?
Bharat was elder.
So it was.
Bharat was second.
Is there anything that's said about the age difference of the brothers?
No.
It's just Shri Ram first, Bharat second, Lakshman third, Shatrughan
Yes.
fourth. And Shatrughan, this is all that's said about him.
Yes. Quite, not much about Shatrughan other than this.
Did they have other siblings?
No.
Just the four of them. I wonder what Shatrughan's role was.
See, Maharshi Valmiki also is quite clinical in the sense he doesn't elaborate on some roles at all. So he does take some digressions on economy or governance and botany and geography, but about some of the characters, he doesn't say anything, or he says for a very brief time. For example, Vishwamitra played such a big role in the Balakand, nothing after that. Kaikeyi, in the first part of the Ayodhya Kand, she was this, so many things happened because of what she was doing, and almost nothing about her afterwards. Shatrughan, very little. Now, many people also ask about Urmila, Lakshman's wife, and how did she feel when they had to go into Vanwas?
Was she also Sita Ma's sister?
Yes.
Sibling?
Yes.
In the last episode we spoke about how Sita Ma was found in the field.
Yes.
So was Urmila with her?
No. Urmila was Janak's daughter.
Biological?
Yes.
Got it. Sita Ma was the adopted daughter.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And on this topic, about Urmila as well, Maharshi Valmiki does not describe anything other than the point where Shri Ram tells Lakshman, Vraja pruchhasva saumitre sarvameva suhrud janam. Go and seek the consent and blessings of all your near and dear ones. So that is all that is mentioned about Urmila. Even afterwards, during Vanwas, Sita talks about how things must be back in Ayodhya. She talks about Bharat, about Kausalya, but she also does not mention Urmila, her own sister.
Wow.
So we know very little about her. Of course, she would have gone through a very difficult time, no doubt about that, but Maharshi Valmiki does not describe anything directly.
Okay. Another curiosity-oriented question. Is it true that the majority of the Vanvas was spent in Chitrakoot?
No, not at all. In fact, after these first few weeks, when Bharat came to call them, he went back after the debate, and then Shri Ram, Lakshman and Sita moved further south from Chitrakoot, right after that debate.
So, were they nomadic or did they settle down in a...
Interestingly, Maharshi Valmiki describes their time in Chitrakoot, and then when they move south, he describes a few incidents and then suddenly zips past. He says, and they stayed for 6 months at one place, a year at another, and so 10 years went by, right? So he zips through that.
This is roughly the south of Madhya Pradesh, maybe Andhra, Karnataka,
So Chitrakoot
Maharashtra.
is Madhya Pradesh. From there, they go to Panchavati. Of course, they go through a lot of ashrams in the forest area. But in terms of making their own hermitage and staying there, first Chitrakoot and then Panchavati. Panchavati is modern day Nasik, not too far from here. And then afterwards to Kishkinda in Karnataka.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
There's a place in Mumbai that has some connection with the lore of the Ramayana. Banganga. Mentioned?
Not specifically here, yes.
Got it. I think there's a lot of spots in India, especially Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Karnataka.
Yes.
Where there's a lot of lore associated with the Ramayana. But who knows if it's actually mentioned in the Valmiki Ramayana or it's the local lore.
See, there's places that have vivid descriptions we can tally very correctly to locations today.
For example?
Without a doubt, like Panchavati or Chitrakoot or Kishkinda.
How do we know that Panchavati was Nashik?
Well, even today there is a place called Panchavati in Nasik, across the river. There, if you go, they do point to a very specific cave in which Sita took refuge afterwards. Now also Maharishi Valmiki has described that place vividly. He's described the tree varieties found in the area. So this is how historical researchers, tally to current locations.
How do you feel after knowing the geography of those times? Because of the detours related to geography, I'm sure there's a very vivid mental image that you have in your head about the forests and about the subcontinent in general at that time. Is it fair to say that maybe at that phase of Indian history, which is 12,000 BC roughly, Madhya Pradesh and the southern part of India was primarily filled with like jungles, or was there also kingdoms?
See, south of the Vindhyas, there are references to some urban settlements, but largely it was forested, south of the Vindhyas. And that is also understandable because in the northern plains, we have perennial rivers. Ice from the Himalayas gives water throughout the year, whereas in the south, it is only rain-fed.
Gotcha. Mostly jungles.
Yes.
Okay.
Except, some cities will come across them, Kishkinda in some time.
Okay.
Right. So we are about the end of the Ayodhya Kand here, the second book of the Ramayana. After the discussion, Bharat goes back to Ayodhya. He settles down in Nandigram, and Shri Ram, Lakshman and Sita come further south into the Dandakaranya, the Dandak forest. The last verse of the Ayodhya Kand, Maharishi Valmiki says that Shri Ram, together with Lakshman and Sita, entered the great forest, and it seemed as though the sun had entered a forest of clouds. It's beautiful imagery. The sun, Shri Ram, is gone. Ayodhya will now be in darkness till he comes back. And that is the end of the second book, Ayodhya Kandam Sampurnam.
Is it a peaceful end or is it a little morose?
It's peaceful because the Rakshas attacks have not yet started. And they are about to start in the next book.
Where do we begin this next section?
So we finished the Ayodhya Kand and now we begin the next book of the Ramayana, the third book, Aranya Kand, the book of the forest.
Ayodhya Kand was the second book.
Yes.
Right? In all the books, do you feel a different energy, for lack of better words?
Very much. In fact, Ayodhya Kand was very dramatic. Remember, Balakand had a mix of, stories that spanned a long time. We spoke about the birth of Ganga and, hundreds of years and stories over a large area. And Ayodhya Kand was about only what happened in Ayodhya over a very short period and then later on in Chitrakoot as well. So very dramatic. And now Aranya Kand, we will meet Ravan and some action scenes.
Okay. This is where the plot thickens.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I think the plot was set in the Ayodhya Kand. The context was set in the Balkand. And here the actual plot thickens. Let's talk about the first few stanzas of the Aranya Kand. What is the context setting within this book?
Soon after they enter the forest, they come to a part of the forest where there are signs of danger. So clearly, this ominous feeling that something is going to happen starts. The broken branches lying around, creepers are mangled. And suddenly a huge Rakshas comes out of the trees. He grabs Sita and steps back. And he tells Ram and Lakshman, "My name is Viradha. And this beautiful woman will now be my wife. And I will kill you too." Ram and Lakshman quickly fire off some arrows at Viradha. He is injured and Sita manages to get away. Viradha is wearing tiger skin, which is covered with flesh and blood. He is very ferocious. He has a spear with spiked animal heads. And he gets ready to throw the spear, and Ram fires an arrow at the spear and breaks it. And then Viradha simply charges onto them. He rams onto them. He's physically very strong, very bulky. And earlier you had asked about, the different types of fight sequences. So far we've seen bows and arrows and things being thrown by Tataka and Marich and Subahu. But now this is a hand-to-hand combat. because Viradha simply charges onto them and he's so bulky, Ram and Lakshman are on two sides, he almost lifts them off their feet. Ram and Lakshman decide to take a few steps back. Sita thinks that they are losing. She starts to scream. But it's a tactical few steps back. In a coordinated way, they turn around and break his shoulders. And then Ram and Lakshman punch and kick him, lift him off the ground and smash him down. And they do this again and again till he's dead. In his dying moments, Viradha tells them that he was not always a Rakshas. He had been a Gandharva earlier. Remember, Tataka was born in a Yaksha family, became a Rakshasi. Viradha too was born a Gandharva, became a Rakshas. Clearly, Rakshasas were not a different race.
Let's pause it a little bit here and break down the word Rakshasa. Also break down the word Gandharva, Yaksha a little bit.
Yes, so these are different communities. Yaksha community was very wealthy. Gandharva community was very proficient in the arts, music and dance. And Rakshas was the community of Ravan, whom we will meet shortly. And at the time of the Ramayana, the Rakshasas were defined by their violence and brutality.
Okay. I've had some Tantra-oriented episodes where we've spoken about Yaksh and Gandharvs.
Uh-huh.
And at least I've been told on those episodes that these are the names of higher beings. Like in other faiths, they believe in angels. It's somewhat the equivalent of that. I just question that in the Treta Yuga, which is when the Ramayana happened, did the Yakshas and the Gandharvas occupy parts of earth as well? That's my kind of question.
Yes, and I'm giving you the descriptions as they are in the Valmiki Ramayana and we have to understand them. So clearly here's a Rakshas who is telling us that he was earlier a Gandharva. Right? So they were a community occupying the land like other communities at that time.
Okay. What do you feel about Rakshasas? Are they human beings?
Yes.
You think they're human beings?
Yes. For example, the fact that other people become Rakshasas. Ravan was born to a Rishi. Now, clearly, we are talking of humans. People of Ayodhya were born to Rishis. Vanaras, some of the Vanaras specifically, we had this conversation before we started the series, a long conversation on the Vanaras. And I'd given you a specific example also of how some Vanaras were born to Rishis. So we are talking of the same species from a biological point of view.
Why do you think this story of Viradha is mentioned at the start of the...
It sets the context because their period in the forest is going to be defined by, there is a build-up of a clash between the Rakshasas and the rest of society.
Gotcha. Okay.
Also, we learn something interesting about how Shri Ram feels about this. When Viradha first grabbed Sita, about this he tells Lakshman, Paras parshat tu vaidehya na dukkhataramasti me, pitur vinashat saumitre swarajya haranat tatha. There is nothing more painful for me than an unwanted touch on Sita. Not even the loss of the empire or father's death had caused me as much pain as one unwanted touch on Sita. That's what Sita meant for Shri Ram. And I'm mentioning this because much later, we will talk about what Sita meant for him. We had this discussion earlier about Agni Pravesh, Agni Pariksha, etc. But for this series, that's yet to come.
Okay.
So with that context of the Rakshas attacking Shri Ram and Lakshman, Valmiki then talks about the first few weeks and months in the forest. They visited the ashrams of Sutikshna Muni, Sharbhanga Muni and others. And then he quickly zips past many years, saying that they stayed for a few months in one place, a year in another, and time went by.
But peaceful description?
Without much of an event, he said.
Okay.
So 10 years. So no clear clash with the Rakshasas during this time. At least he doesn't mention it. He said without much of an event.
But he's painted a picture of their life in the 10 years?
No. Nothing much. In fact, with just one verse, he zips past saying they stayed here and there and life, 10 years went by.
Okay.
And then they came to Agastya Muni's ashram. And during the conversations there, Shri Ram asked Agastya Muni where they should spend the rest of their period of Vanwas. And he suggested that they should go to Panchavati. He said that it's a beautiful place next to the Godavari, near the Godavari. There's plenty of food. They can find fruits and roots. Also the water source nearby. He also said that there are Rakshas attacks happening there and Shri Ram can protect the ascetics while he's there. Rakshasas had a power center at Janasthan, not too far from Panchavati. And Khar, one of Ravan's brothers, was leading the Rakshasas there. Agastya Muni also gifted Ram, gave him some special astras, a bow, some arrows and a sword. He was preparing him for any battles with the Rakshasas while they're staying at Panchavati. Ram, Lakshman and Sita move on from Agastya Muni's ashram, and on the way to Panchavati, they come across somebody who looks like a vulture, but is not actually a vulture. We had spoken about the Vanaras, the forest dwellers who dressed up like monkeys. So here was a forest dweller who dressed up like a vulture. His name was Jatayu. And he said that he used to be a dear friend of Dasharatha's. And he told Ram that he would be happy to come along and stay with them during their stay in Panchavati and be of any assistance. And so all four of them came to Panchavati, where they set up a hermitage and started, Shri Ram, Lakshman and Sita started living there. Then one day, they had a visitor, a Rakshasi. She looked at Ram and she was attracted to him. She approached him lustfully and said, "Who are you? We Rakshasas roam around in this area. What are you doing here?" She was clearly aggressive. But Ram ignored her aggressive nature and introduced themselves and asked her about herself. When she heard Ram speak, she was even more attracted to him. And she said, "My name is Shurpanakha. I am Ravan's sister. You must have heard about him." And she's attracted towards Ram. And she tells him, "I think you should be my husband." Ram once again ignores her inappropriate behavior and he tells her, "I'm married and my wife is very dear to me." And then a little playfully, he says, "Why don't you ask Lakshman? He's also very handsome." And Shurpanakha drops Ram and immediately goes to Lakshman and proposes to him. Lakshman also refuses. But continuing Ram's banter, he says, "Why do you want to be my wife? I'm just a servant to my brother. I think somebody like you deserve him, not me. So you should ask Ram." Shurpanakha goes back to Ram and says that you are not looking at me because of this woman. She's talking about Sita. And so I will kill her and eat her in front of you. And she lunges towards Sita with the stated intention of killing her. Suddenly the situation is now dangerous. Shri Ram steps in. Lakshman comes to their rescue and he strikes Shurpanakha with his sword. And her ear and nose are slashed. Shurpanakha goes screaming into the forest. This incident, sometimes it is understood a bit incorrectly. People think of Shurpanakha as some helpless woman sitting cowering in fear, and Lakshman struck his sword on her. But clearly she was the aggressor. She had tried to kill Sita and Lakshman had come for the rescue and she got injured.
How is she described?
So she is described, she describes Sita as old and ugly and some other unflattering remarks. And Maharshi Valmiki also says that it's surprising what were appropriate adjectives for her. She was using them for Sita.
Wow. Projection of insecurities. Okay. But are the Rakshasas physically described at any point?
Yeah. So we get a detailed description of Ravan. But Shurpanakha also was physically strong. In fact, when she goes running to Khar, her brother, he's surprised. He said, "Who could have done this to you? What happened?" Right? So she was strong. And if she attacked Sita, there was a clear danger for Sita when Shurpanakha attacked her.
Gotcha.
So Shurpanakha went to Khar, her brother, and told him what had happened. Interestingly, when she is describing Ram and Lakshman to Khar, she is still in awe of them. So she uses the words that these two brothers, Ram and Lakshman, they are so handsome and strong. They are like gods. But because of that woman, they attacked me. So now I want them dead. She tells Khar. By the way, here there is a particular shlok which is quite popular. This was later used in the prayer called Ramaraksha Stotra. So Shurpanakha is telling about Ram and Lakshman. She says, Tarunau Rupa Sampannau Sukumarau Mahabalau Pundarika Vishalakshau Chira Krishna Jinambarau. She is describing them, how they are handsome and so on. And this phrase, this shlok was later on used for another prayer.
Do you know Rasrajji Maharajas?
Yes. Yes.
He's known for his lo-fi bhajans. It's actually become very popular in the last 2 years. You go to any cricketer, any actor, I've even seen politicians, everyone listens to him before shoots, before important events. He's become that popular. He was on the show a year ago. He said that there's some form of divinity that you feel by simply reading the Ramayana. He especially talks about the Sundarkand. He said that the least one can do is listen to about 6 paragraphs of the Sundarkand, and even that is some form of spiritual evolution. And here we're talking about the whole book, and you've studied it. I'm sure you've reread it multiple times.
Yes. Yes.
What changed in you through this process? On the inside. I'm not talking about a surface level thing, because you've read the whole book, not just the Sundarkand.
Yes. Well, clearly earlier, what was, I was familiar with the story, but really in my day-to-day lives, for example, if there's a difficult situation, to find inspiration from the how Shri Ram, Lakshman, Sita and Hanuman also went through difficult situations and they came back and overcame those emotions is something that, I draw inspiration from.
Inner strength?
Yes, it definitely gives you strength. It definitely gives you strength to overcome challenges.
You're probably one of the most humble people I've had on the show. And I look at that as an outcome of you having studied the Ramayana this much. Some deeper level of humility is there that I think people understand through your voice. Do you think that's come from your process of studying?
I'm sure there is only benefit to studying this. And if, a casual reading gives so much benefit, then surely a deeper study gives even more benefit.
Do you think that there's more for you to understand even today?
Definitely. Again, because I find that even my understanding, that I'm always learning something new. I'll give you an example. We spoke earlier in this conversation only about how Shri Ram's character in his everyday interactions is inspiring, whether it is feed for the horses or will Sita be comfortable there or what about Bharat, etc. That's not something that I had noticed in the first reading. So I was more interested, for example, in the bigger dramatic events that were happening.
And how many times have you read it?
Well, not you could say overall perhaps 2 or 3 times, but not cover to cover every time. For example, I would just go and read the Aranya Kand, right? If that is the topic for study at that time.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you dream about the Ramayana? at night sometimes?
Well, it is always on the mind.
Okay. Have you seen things in your head?
The purpose is day-to-day behavior. Right?
Okay.
So, can we be better in our day-to-day interactions, in our relationships, do the right thing, be righteous, humble, truthful. So, I just keep the focus on that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. One last question.
sure.
Is the book still unlocking its mystical layers to you?
It is unlocking its teachings all the time.
There's still a lot that's coming your way.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Okay. Let's move on.
So Shurpanakha went running to Khar, and Khar decided to attack Ram. He sent off 14 of his warriors with Shurpanakha to attack Ram, but they were finished off in no time. Shurpanakha went running back. Khar was stunned that his most capable of warriors had been killed. So this time he attacked with a much bigger force. Valmiki says this force had 14,000 Rakshasas. And now we have a vivid description of a Rakshas army. Till now we have seen Rakshasas with spears, with one-off attackers. But this was a very capable, very well-armed army. It had elephants, horses, chariots. They had all the astras and shastras, bows and arrows, spears, maces, chakras. Maharishi Valmiki also says not only were these Rakshas warriors extremely capable, but they were also brutal. Killing was a sport for them. Lokahimsa viharinam. And they attacked Shri Ram. As they were coming towards Panchavati, Ram saw them coming and he told Lakshman, take Sita to that cave behind the trees and stay on guard there. I know you are well capable of handling this, but let me take care of it. By the way, this is the cave I was mentioning earlier. If you go to Panchavati, you can still go inside the cave. So Sita went inside the cave. Lakshman stood on guard. The Rakshasas attacked. And Shri Ram, from a picturization point of view, Maharishi Valmiki has described that his motions were so swift, drawing the arrow from the quiver, loading it on the bow, and firing it off. These actions were so swift that you could hardly see them. There was only a shower of arrows coming out. And they were bang on target. Hundreds of Rakshasas were soon dead. The battleground was littered with broken chariots. Ram was also hurt, grievously hurt. His body was covered with wounds, blood and sweat.
How were the Rakshasas attacking him?
So far, there is still a lot of distance between them. So they were attacking with bows and arrows, spears, things that they could throw.
Gotcha.
And he was able to tackle them before they got close. In the end, most of the Rakshasas were dead. Some had fled. Khar remained. And then Shri Ram picked up the bow that Agastya Muni had given him and killed Khar. So the entire Rakshas force at Janasthan, which was their power center in this region, had been decimated. One of the people that had survived was a Rakshas called Akampan. Akampan went to Lanka to report this to Ravan, to the king of the Rakshasas, Ravan. He told Ravan that his forces at Janasthan were all destroyed. Khar was dead. Ravan exploded in anger and he said, Kena Janasthanam hatam mama. Who has destroyed my Janasthan? Akampan told him what Ram had done. Ravan immediately said, I will go there and kill him. Akampan said, he is too powerful. You cannot take him head on. He knows all the astras and shastras, and in archery, he is unmatched. But Akampan said, there is a way. He has a beautiful wife, and she is very dear to him. If you kidnap her, he will not be able to live. he will be a broken man and you can then defeat him. Ravan liked the idea. He went to see Marich. Remember, in our first discussion, Marich and Subahu had attacked Vishwamitra's Yajna. Ram had injured Marich, but he had managed to get away. The same Marich. So Ravan asked him, told him what had happened, and he said, I want your help to kidnap Sita. Marich told him to drop the idea. He said, don't provoke Ram. If you know what's good for you, go back to Lanka and enjoy your life. And so Ravan went back. Now, two interesting things so far from this. See, Ravan has not even heard about Shurpanakha. Many times we incorrectly think that he kidnapped Sita as revenge for what had happened to Shurpanakha. But he has not even heard about Shurpanakha, and he's made that decision to kidnap Sita. And why? Because he wants to take revenge at Ram. So clearly he thought of Sita as a tool of war, something to be used. He saw nothing wrong in kidnapping a man's wife because he had a battle with the person and he couldn't take him head on. So that was Ravan's intent.
At what point is the description of Ravan given in the whole book?
Right at this point.
Okay.
Right at this point, because when he goes back soon afterwards, Shurpanakha comes to meet Ravan. And now Maharshi Valmiki describes his majestic presence. So Ravan is sitting in court.
Up till this point, what's described about him?
Not much physically. So it's almost like a director who's giving us glimpses of that character, but gives a full description, a full picture now.
But is he spoken about as a king?
Yes, king of Rakshasas, very fearful. In fact, Valmiki has used words like even the ocean out of fear became silent. The waves of the ocean became silent because of Ravan. So a very powerful, fearful person.
That's it.
Yeah, not so much physically so far. And now the physical description is coming.
Okay. But what are we supposed to fear about him before the physical description?
So I didn't go through this in detail. During their stay in Vanwas, when they went to different ashrams, the rishis told Ram clearly that the Rakshasas are slaughtering us. So the encounter with Viradha was not a one-off incident. The Rakshasas were repeatedly attacking the rishis. They were killing them mercilessly and they were helpless because they did not carry arms. And they pleaded with Ram, please do something about it. There's no one else we can turn to. And the kingpin of all this massacre was Ravan. There is a point in which the rishis point to a mountain of dead bodies and bones. People that the Rakshasas have killed.
Got it. Okay.
So Ravan was sitting in his court. Shurpanakha comes in and Valmiki describes Ravan now. Vyumshad bhujam dashagrivam darshaniya parichhadam. He was a sight to see, with 10 heads and 20 arms. A huge body covered with battle scars, lavish clothes. He had all the signs of royalty. And he was sitting regally in his court. Now, many times, this 10 heads is something that we picturize for Ravan, right? Today you ask any child to draw a picture of Ravan, it will be usually 10 heads in a straight line, 1 head in the middle, 4 to one side, 5 to another. So, in this description, Valmiki has said 10 heads. But there is also another description later on. When Hanuman goes in the Sundarkand, he goes to Lanka and he looks at Ravan's sleeping figure. He talks about only 1 head and 2 arms. Right? So clearly there is a description of 1 head and 2 arms and also a description of 10 heads. And the words Dashanana, Dashamukh, which means 10 heads, are used repeatedly. Right? So what to make of this? Most likely he had a crown that made it look like he had 10 heads and a throne that gave the appearance of 20 arms. See, Ravan wanted to project his power. He ruled through fear. And so the imagery is fantastic of him projecting his power with 10 heads and 20 arms. Right? And Shurpanakha comes in. And she gives him a lashing. She scolds him. Only a sister can do something like that, publicly, for this great king. She says, "You are enjoying life, aren't you? You are so childish and stupid and surrounded by these fools you call ministers. Do you even know what's happening in the world? Your forces at Janasthan are destroyed. Khar is dead. And all this was done by one person, Ram." Ravan then asks, "Who is this Ram?" Shurpanakha then tells what has happened. See, even now, her first ask is not, "Look what Lakshman did to me." She says, "Look, your forces at Janasthan are destroyed. And Khar is dead." That is why she wants Ravan to take revenge. So when Ravan asks her, "Who is this Ram?" Shurpanakha describes what happened. She also mentions that she managed to get away alive only because she was a woman and Ram was hesitant to kill a woman. And she also lies blatantly about the reason why all this started. So she said, "Sita is the most beautiful woman in the world. I think she should be your wife. I was trying to get her for you and Ram and Lakshman attacked me." Right? So she gives this lie and then she says, "Now your forces are all destroyed. Khar is dead. What are you going to do about it?" She also tells him the same thing what Akampan had said, that you should abduct Sita. And Ravan thought about it for a while and he came to the decision that he will kidnap Sita. That would serve two purposes. One, he would get the most beautiful woman in the world as his wife. And secondly, it would weaken Ram, his enemy, for what Ram had done at Janasthan. Ravan went back to Marich and said this time, he said, "Look, Marich, I want to kidnap Sita. And you are a master of disguise. You need to help me. You turn yourself into a deer and you attract Sita's attention. Sita will then ask Ram and Lakshman to get the deer. And then you slowly draw them away from the cottage. When Sita is alone, I will go and kidnap her." Valmiki's description is very interesting then. He says, Marich looked at Ravan without blinking, as though he were dead. He licked his lips and said, "You don't know Ram." Marich also said, "Shurpanakha instigated Khar. Khar attacked Ram and got himself killed. What is Ram's fault in all this? Ko Ramasya Vyatikramah." Marich said, "I know Ram very well. Many years back, when I was much younger and Ram was just a boy, I had attacked Vishwamitra's yajna. Ram had defeated me then as well. Then much later, when he was in Dandakaranya, I wanted to take revenge and attacked him with two of my friends. They both got killed and I somehow managed to flee. But now, even the memories of my encounters are terrifying." So, Valmiki describes how Marich sees Ram everywhere. He's imagining Ram. Thousands of Ram in the forest. They are holding a bow and he feels that they are holding a noose, etc. So Marich tells him very clearly, "My advice is this. Don't provoke Ram and go back to Lanka. And if you are still intent on this plan, leave me out of it." Ravan got angry and he asked Marich, "Did I ask for your advice? I have come here for your support and you are going to help me. And I'll reward you well for this. But if you refuse, I will kill you now itself." Marich was left with no choice and he said, "You leave me no choice. I will do as you ask." Ravan then suddenly turned friendly. And he said, "That's my man. That's the real Marich. Idani masi Marichaha purvamanyaha." And so the two got together to execute the plan of kidnapping Sita. So Marich and Ravan then go from Lanka to Panchavati. By the way, they take a Viman. So this is the first time we come across the flying Rath, flying chariot, Viman. Ravan had multiple Vimans, and right now the name is not given as Pushpak. That comes later. They come to Panchavati. Marich transforms himself into a deer, a very attractive deer. And as planned, he goes near Sita. She sees him and she's mesmerized. She calls out to Ram, Lakshman. Lakshman says, "This deer cannot be for real. I think it's a trick. Perhaps it's that Rakshas Marich." But Sita did not listen. She asked Ram to get the deer for her. And Ram told Lakshman, "You be here and stay on guard. I will go after the deer." Ram started chasing the deer, and the deer, which is Marich, drew him further and further away from the cottage. This happened for a long time. Finally, Ram was able to take aim and shot off an arrow. The arrow struck the deer, which is Marich, in the chest. And he screamed, "Sita! Lakshman!" Ram realized this was a trick. And he wished that Sita and Lakshman would not fall for this. Back in the cottage, Sita heard the scream, and she was worried for Ram. She told Lakshman, "Ram is in trouble. He's calling out to us. Please go and help him." Lakshman said, "Ram does not need help to tackle any Rakshas." And that was not his voice. "Please be assured, he will come back." But Sita was not assured. She became hysterical with worry. And she told Lakshman, "Why aren't you going out to help him? Do you want him to die?" "I know. In fact, you want him to die so that you can have me. Isn't that so? You have had an eye on me all along, and that is why you came into the forest. Perhaps you planned all this with Bharat." What a thing to say to Lakshman. Remember, when they were leaving, Lakshman's mother had told him, "Ramam Dasharatham Viddhi, Mam Viddhi Janakat Majam." Treat Ram as your father. Treat Sita like your mother. And that is what Lakshman had done. For all these years, he had served them. And now to hear this from Sita, how unfair. He said to Sita, "Your words fall upon my ears like red-hot darts. Shrotrayor ubhayor madhye taptanara cha sannibham." Imagine the pain if you heat up some arrows on a fire till they are red hot and then strike them in your ears. What pain it would cause. Lakshman said, "That is the pain hearing your words are causing me. I cannot take this." He said, "I will go now." And he went after Ram, and he did not draw any Lakshman Rekha. By the way, there is a popular story that Lakshman drew a line around the cottage which had the power that nobody could cross that line, which was called Lakshman Rekha, but that is not mentioned in the Valmiki Ramayana. So Lakshman went away. Sita was now alone, and Ravan made his next move. He came he wore a disguise of a monk, and he came to the cottage. He looked at Sita. He checked her out lecherously and then spoke to her. He asked her, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" He showered compliments on her beauty. Sita ignored all of that and welcomed him as he was a monk. She was uncomfortable. She so wished that Ram and Lakshman would come back. She was looking out towards the forest, but there was no sign of them. She then answered. She told him about herself and Ram and Lakshman and asked about him. Who are you and what are you doing in this forest? Ravan's answer and then their discussion. I want to show you another video on this because it really brings out Sita's strength of character.
And now please tell me about yourself, she said. Your name and lineage, and why you are roaming all alone in this forest. Ravan replied sharply, My name is Ravan, the very word that strikes fear in the hearts of one and all. I am the king of the Rakshasas. O Sita, come with me and be my queen. You will live in great luxury and comfort in my fabulous capital city of Lanka. There are many women that I have captured from different lands. You will be the queen among all of them. An enraged Sita fired back at Ravan. I am the devoted and loyal wife of Ram, who is the greatest among men. You are a jackal and I am a lioness. You cannot have me. I am like the sun's radiance that you cannot even touch. You want to abduct the beloved wife of Ram? Oh, poor you! You are seeking to pull the teeth out of a hungry, powerful lion. You are trying to swim across the sea with a heavy stone around your neck. So, you wish to violate Ram's wife? You are rubbing your eyes with a needle, licking a razor with your tongue. You are drinking the deadliest of poisons. Yadantaram syandika samudrayoh tadantaram dasharathe. The difference between Ram and you is the difference between the ocean and a creek. The difference between Ram and you is the difference between gold and lead, between sandal-infused water and ditch water. Having thus told him off, Sita stood trembling. Ravan knitted his eyebrows and frowned. Lalate krukutim kritva. He tried to cow her down by telling her about his prowess and how everyone was terrified of him. He told her how lucky she was that the great king of the Rakshasas himself had fallen for her. She ought not to refuse him and let go of such an excellent chance. He tried to win her over by telling her again about the wonderful life she could have in Lanka. And he promised, My dear, I will never do anything against your wishes. Abandon Ram and come with me. When Sita refused again, Ravan announced, You are crazy. I am the only one suitable to be your husband. You fool, I simply cannot understand what you see in Ram. Ravan was an entitled, powerful man used to having his way every time. A woman had refused his advances. So, of course, it was now time to use brute force. He dropped his guise of being an ascetic and Vamena Sitam Padmakshim Murdhajeshu Karena Sah Urvostu Dakshine Naiva Parijagraha Panina. He seized her by the hair with his left hand and lifted her legs off the ground with his right hand. Sita started screaming and tried desperately to free herself from his grip. But Ravan was simply too strong for her. He carried her off towards his rath.
You never hear about how powerfully Sita gave it back.
Yes.
Why not?
In many popular productions, Sita's character is perhaps a bit too weepy.
Docile?
Yes.
This
And clearly, she was physically not able to take on Ravan, but we will see again and again, for all his physical strength, he was not able to bend her will. So, even right now, when he was carrying her off, and some people think that he never touched her, but clearly he did, and he was carrying her off. Sita called out to Jatayu. By the way, she uses the word Arya to call out to him. Many times we think that Aryan or Arya is some different people, but it stands for a noble person in Ayodhya, among the forest dwellers, as well as in Lanka. So Sita called out to Jatayu. Jatayu came to her rescue, and his action is also incredible. He told Ravan, "You are young and I am old. You are well armed and I am not. But I will not allow you to kidnap Sita while I am alive. Ravan, fight with me." Clearly, he had little chance of winning. But he said, even then, while I am alive, I will not let something like this happen. And he put up a great fight, but he soon got exhausted. Ravan kicked him to the ground, and then with his sword, he cut off all his limbs. Sita rushed to the injured Jatayu. Ravan pulled her back. Sita went and hugged a tree. Ravan again grabbed her by the hair, dragged her back to the Rath, and flew away. In the Rath, Sita was weeping bitterly. Poetically, Valmiki says, the treetops, as they swayed, seemed to be saying to her, "Ma bhai, don't be scared." And Sita soon overcame her fear, and she started looking to what else she could do to give some clues for Ram and Lakshman to find her. She started looking ahead. And she took off some of her jewelry, put it in a piece of cloth. By the way, in the first discussion I had said when Dasharatha insisted that she wear some jewelry, this will play a role in the story. This is the point. So Sita took off her jewelry, put it in a piece of cloth, and without drawing Ravan's attention, dropped it near some Vanaras who were sitting on a hilltop. And the Vanaras looked up at her, and they saw Ravan going away with a woman who had just dropped some jewelry. Ravan took her to Lanka, and there he forcibly took her around his grand palace and proudly showed it off. By the way, even here he mentioned he had captured hundreds of women from different lands. And his offer to Sita was, "You will be the chief among them. You will be my chief queen. You will live a life of luxury." But inducements or threats, Sita's answer was a firm no. Sita also knew that Ravan was physically very powerful. So she told him, "Idam shariram dissanyam bandhava ghatayasvava." This body does not have consciousness. Even I am not interested in it anymore. You can bind it, restrain it, or kill it. But you can never have me. Ravan was unable to bend her will. But he still thought that he could break her. He called some Rakshas and told them, "Take her to the Ashokvan. She is a wild elephant that needs to be tamed. Torture her and then be nice to her. Break her." And to Sita, Ravan gave this clear threat. He said, "I give you 12 months. Come to me willingly, or else I will eat you up for breakfast." Tatastvam pratarashartham sudash chetsyanti leshashah. My cooks will chop you up into pieces for my breakfast. That was the threat. Coming back to Panchavati, Ram realized that this was a trick. First he was drawn away, then Marich had shouted, "Lakshman, Sita." He started coming back towards the cottage. But on the way he met Lakshman, and his heart sank. He said, "Why did you come? I had told you to stay there and protect Sita." Lakshman told Ram what Sita had said. And he said, I couldn't take it. Ram scolded him. He said, you should not have come. Those words were spoken in anger, and you got provoked. Lakshman, you made a big mistake. I really feel for Lakshman, First he had to hear all those unfair words from Sita, and now from Ram, but he did not respond this time. They had to get back quickly, and they both rushed back towards the cottage. Ram was shaking when they neared the cottage, and their worst fears had come true. The cottage was empty. Shunyama vasatam. Clearly something had happened, because straw mats were thrown around and there was no sign of Sita. But Ram held on to hope. He said, perhaps she's gone into the forest to collect some fruits or gone down to the river to get some water. He went around looking for her. He went down to the river, looked everywhere in the forests, up on the mountains. He was calling out to her and weeping all the time. He had become stark raving mad. Bhranta unmatta iva lakshate. And then he thought, or could it be a game? Your mind plays these games. You want to hold on to hope. He said, Sita, are you hiding behind the trees somewhere? Avagacchami te sheelam parihasa priyam priye. I know you like to play these games, but enough of it now. I can't take this anymore. Please come out. But the only answer was the silence of the forest. And now it was quite clear that something terrible had happened. We will see Ram's reaction now in a video.
Lakshman, it is clear. Either the Rakshasas have abducted her or killed her. If this was an abduction, Ram was worried sick for her. How she would have cried. In what condition she would be right now. If she had already been killed, then there was nothing for him to live for. Ram was totally dejected. He was almost losing his mind with grief. He said, "O Lakshman, I will surely die now. You go back to Ayodhya and tell Bharat the empire is his. Take care of Kausalya, Sumitra and Kaikeyi. Tell them all what happened. Oh, how will Sita's parents take it?" Through all this, Lakshman had been trying to console Ram, giving him hope and instilling confidence. Once again, he urged, "Ram, pull yourself together. Give up this grief and take courage. We must keep looking for Sita." They went back to the Godavari to look for Sita yet again. And this time, they got a clue. A herd of deer was looking south in a peculiar way. Ram and Lakshman headed off in the direction of their gaze. And shortly, they saw some flowers strewn on the path. "These are the very same flowers I had given Sita," Ram exclaimed, "and she had worn them in her hair." Ram's grief started giving way to anger. He looked around. The mountains and the river had witnessed what had happened to Sita. Poetically, Valmiki says, "Ram roared at the mountain like a lion roars at a deer. Have you seen my dear Sita? Tell me, where is she?" The echo from the mountain appeared to be saying something, but it did not reveal anything about Sita. And then, a little further ahead, they saw the large footprints of a Rakshas, and then Sita's footprints. The marks showed a chase and a struggle. There was also a broken bow, parts of a rath, broken bits of ornaments and garlands, and blood. Ram's anger boiled over. What have these Rakshasas done to Sita? I will never allow them to get away with it. I am known for my restraint and compassion, but some think that it is a weakness. No more. If Sita does not return safely, the world will witness my power. For Sita, I will kill every one of these Rakshasas. I will even destroy the gods if they don't hand back Sita to me. Ram's anger was like the fire that brings the end of the world, the end of time, Yuganta Agni. And he said, Tatha rupam hi vaidehim nadasyanti yadi priyam nashayami jagat sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam. If I do not get back my beloved Sita safe and well, I will destroy the three worlds and everything and everyone in them. Iti her asa. That is how it happened.
A little bit of Parshuram and Shri Ram.
This is a side of Ram that we have never seen before. In many popular depictions as well, this level of anger is not shown. Lakshman also remarks afterwards, he's never seen Ram like this. And he tries to calm him down. And he says it's usually the other way around. Lakshman says, because it's usually Ram calming down Lakshman. He said, we should not lose hope. We will find Sita, wherever she may be. And so they start looking for her once again. And now they come across Jatayu. And in his dying moments, Jatayu tells them what happened and gives them two vital clues. He tells them that Ravan has abducted Sita and he has headed south. With that information, they too head south, but not sure where. So they go around without much of a plan, here and there, viparidhavatam. And they're looking around for her. A few days go by. And one day they are attacked by a Rakshas Kabandh. They manage to overpower him and kill him as well. But in his dying moments, he has a change of heart and he asks them, what can he do for them? Ram tells them what has happened and asks if he knows where he could find Sita. Kabandh says, I don't know where Sita is, but I know just the person who can help you find her. His name is Sugriv and he lives on the Rishyamukh mountain. Kabandh tells them the way to Rishyamukh, which is near the Pampa lake. And he tells them before the Pampa lake, before Rishyamukh, you will come to an ashram and there you will meet Shabri. Make sure you go there. Ram and Lakshman follow the directions given by Kabandh and they come to Shabri's ashram. Now, Pampa, Rishyamukh, Shabri's ashram, now we are in the area of Hampi in Karnataka, from Panchavati in Maharashtra. Shabri's story is also quite popular, but in the Valmiki Ramayana, it is told differently. There are no half-eaten fruits, as it is commonly known. Valmiki tells the backstory. Shabri used to be an attendant in Matanga Muni's ashram. She was a maid, a helper, who helped out with different chores. But she was never kept away from knowledge. Vidnyane tam nityam abahishkritam. So she used to sit in on the discussions among the rishis. And over time, she too gained knowledge and she became a siddha, an accomplished ascetic, and also siddha sammata. She was recognized and accepted by other accomplished ascetics. her guru passed away, Matanga Muni. Other rishis left the ashram and she was the only one left there. When Shri Ram and Lakshman went to meet her, she offered them some fruits. These fruits were from the forest nearby. Matanga Muni, her guru, had lovingly cared for this forest. By the way, in later retellings, this is told differently, that Shabri was discriminated against. And she offered Ram half-eaten fruits. She first checked them whether they were sweet or not, then offered them to Ram. The other people told Ram not to eat them because Shabri was offering them, but Ram said no. He recognized her devotion and had those fruits. This also brings out, another interesting aspect of the journey of Ramayana. See, in the original Ramayana, this story is not one of Shabri facing discrimination, because knowledge was available to all sections of society. But we know that in the last few centuries, there was discrimination in society. And therefore, the gurus of that time used the structure of the Ramayana to tell people not to behave like that, to give a good lesson. So they changed the story in order to give a lesson. After meeting Shabri and the environment of that ashram, Ram felt new hope. He felt things were about to turn. He told Lakshman, I can't wait to meet Sugriv. Let us go to Rishyamukh mountain right away. And without help from someone like Sugriv, how can we find Sita? And without Sita, how can I ever live? Katham maya vina Sitam shakyam Lakshmana jivitum. And with those words, the Aranya Kand comes to an end. Aranya Kandam Sampurnam.
Iti
Asa.
asa.
That is how it happened.
Wow. More violent yet calmer than the last time. Right? Any other signing off notes from you, YD?
Well, Valmiki has just laid the groundwork for the next Kand, which is Kishkinda Kand, because he's given us a hint that Shri Ram and Lakshman will now go to meet Sugriv, and now we will meet Sugriv and Shri Hanuman in the next discussion.
Okay. We will see you very soon, sir. Thank you for an epic part 2 of the series. Jai Shri Ram.
Thank you. Jai Shri Ram.
That was the episode for today, ladies and gentlemen. As you know, episode 3 is going to release in about a month's time. It's going to feature one of the great deities of our faith, Hanumanji. I sincerely hope you're enjoying the series. I sincerely hope you spread the word about this series amongst your friends and family, because I believe that this series is going to spread the word of Sanatan Dharma, spread the word of the Ramayana, especially from an international perspective. We've made it with all our love and all our heart, and I hope that you've felt that translating through the screen and through the speakers. This was part 2 of our 4-part Ramayana special. Part 3 is coming up soon.